In this video, we're going to be calculating the depreciation expense with the straight line depreciation method. And so straight line is the easiest method, and that's because the calculation is very straightforward from the math. And we calculate depreciation expense on the straight line method using this formula. And this is something you want to write down on an index card or on a note card somewhere and keep it handy throughout the rest of the course. So we take the purchase price of the fixed asset, whatever it is that we're buying, minus the salvage value, which is sometimes called residual value, and divide that by the useful life period, which is usually measured in years. Occasionally, very rare, but occasionally, you will see a useful life period that may be measured in, let's say, months rather than years. But for the purposes of example and throughout the rest of this course, we're going to be using the more conventional year useful life period. So it'll be measured in years, 5 years, 10 years, so on. And just a note here about this salvage value or residual value. Depending on the textbook or reference material you're using, salvage value may be called residual value, may be called remaining value, may be called scrap value. The formula is the same. They're just different ways of saying whatever the leftover value of parts and scrap are at the end of a long-lived asset's life. So if we take the example of a car, the tires, the electrical equipment, all of that could be recycled and sold. And so while the car may not be usable as a car, we can take some of those parts out and get some value for whatever remains at the end of the asset's life. So when the car is no longer drivable, we can take those things out and potentially sell them for some value. There are cases where the salvage value or residual value is zero. There is absolutely no value of the asset when it's fully depreciated, and we'll walk through some of those examples. So speaking of an example, let's walk through the first here. Equipment is purchased for $10,000 and has no salvage value. So like we pointed out, sometimes there are pieces of equipment or vehicles that have no salvage value. This is one of them. The useful life of the equipment is expected to be 10 years, and we're going to calculate the annual depreciation expense. So what I like to do is to take the information that's needed for the formula and pull it right out of the problem and just write it down. So the purchase price is $10,000, salvage value is zero, there is none, and the useful life period is 10, and those are 10 years. And so we're going to use that formula that you wrote down, and we're going to simply put the information right into the formula. So $10,000 purchase price minus $0 salvage value divided by 10 years of useful life. And that will be $10,000 divided by 10, which will give us $1,000 of depreciation expense per year. It's as simple as that. You take the information out of the problem, put it right into this formula, do the math, and you will have the depreciation expense measured under the straight line method. So let's do another practice example here. This time we're going to have a vehicle purchased for $20,000. It has a salvage value of $2,000. So there is some value for this particular vehicle when it's depreciated. The useful life of the vehicle is expected to be 9 years. And again, we're going to calculate the annual depreciation expense. So we'll pull out the information, purchase price $20,000. Salvage value is $2,000, and the useful life period is 9. And we'll put it into that formula, just like we talked about before. This is the straight line formula that you definitely want to have written down somewhere. And what we're going to do is take $20,000 for the purchase price minus the $2,000 salvage value. That will give us $18,000 on the numerator and 9 years in the denominator. So 18 divided by 9 will give us $2,000 of depreciation expense per year. So this is an example where there is a salvage value of a vehicle that we're going to be depreciating. And so that's really it for calculating the depreciation expense under the straight line method. It's really straightforward. You pull the information out of the problem, put it into the formula, and you will come up with the depreciation expense per year. So we're going to focus our next session on looking through the accumulated depreciation. So you want to make sure you have a really good foundation calculating the depreciation expense, as that formula and calculation will carry forward into the next lecture. So we'll see you there.